In beginning Russian, you probably learned the basics of using numbers with nouns in phrases like these. Вот 2 чемодана. Я купил 2 книги. Вот 6 студентов. Я купил 5 бутылок. And later, you learn that sometimes the forms of the numbers themselves can change for case. For example, до 2 часов. До 5 часов. After до, we're using the genitive case forms of два and пять, двух and пяти. And notice how the noun is plural in the same case as the number. So we say часов, genitive plural of час, no matter what the number is, as long as it's in the genitive. But sometimes numbers need to be in other cases. For example, the prepositional, if we want to talk about 3 films, or say that someone lives in 2 rooms. And here's some good news. If you've learned the genitive forms of the numbers, then you already know the prepositional forms. They're exactly the same. We have двух, трёх, четырёх, and numbers that end in a soft sign will have the ending «и». Пяти, шести, семи, восьми, and so on. The prepositional case is used with prepositions like в, на, and о, so let's look at some examples. В 2 комнатах живут 4 человека. Английская школа была в 5 минутах ходьбы от нашего дома. Сегодня мы говорили о 3 фильмах. Врачи могли бы зарабатывать рублей 500 при 4 часах работы в день. Here's one thing to be careful of. Even though the genitive and prepositional forms of the numbers are the same, and actually the plural forms of adjectives also happen to look the same in these 2 cases, remember that the forms of the nouns that follow will look different. So we say у 5 новых студентов, but о 5 новых студентах, with студентов in genitive plural after у, and студентах in prepositional plural after о. To remember these forms, you might memorize a few common expressions. В 2 шагах, literally in 2 steps. This means really close, right nearby, совсем близко. Мы жили в 2 шагах от парка. Палка о 2 концах, literally a stick with 2 ends, using an archaic meaning of the preposition о. It's like the English expression a double-edged sword, something that could end well or not so well. I guess the idea is that if you're hitting someone with a stick, they could grab the other end of the stick and hit you with it. После распада Союза выяснилось, что столь желанная для многих независимость – палка о 2 концах. And even though you may not need to use the higher numbers in other cases quite as often, it's good to recognize them. And again, if you know the genitive forms, then you already know the prepositional forms. 40, 90, 100, I'll take a in the prepositional. And for 50, you'll hear 50. Notice how this is a compound made from 5 and 10, so we're really just putting together the prepositional forms 50 and 10, and we'll follow that pattern through 80. 60, 70, 80. Even native speakers sometimes avoid declining really large numbers, but it is good to be familiar with these forms, since you will hear them on the radio in weather reports and so on. Summing up, prepositional case forms of the numbers look just like the genitive case forms. The prepositional forms for 2, 3, 4 end in х, 2, 3, 4. The prepositional forms for numbers that end in a soft sign, like 5, 6, end in и, 5, 6, and so on. Take special care with the tens of 40 through 100, 40, 90, 100, 50, 60, and so on. In compound numbers, every element of the number declines. For example, в 22 городах. You'll see them used after prepositions like в and на when expressing location, and о and при. Be sure to put nouns that follow in the prepositional plural, as in these common expressions. Палка о 2 концах, в 2 шагах.